Thank you for joining Recruiting EQ, episode number 25, which means we're mid-year, minus 2 weeks. I guess I was late or sick those days. Anyway, thank you for being with us. If you're joining right at 12, great. If you're joining later on and you're watching this as it's pre-recorded, also great. We love participation and Recruiting EQ. So quick explanation here. Me and my lovely guests are not on LinkedIn. So if you're leaving comments and they're long, we will not see them all, but we will see your comments. We'll happily read out your comments and address your questions, comments, anything you have on our sales panel topics. And that is very encouraged. We've had a lot of great participation in that regard lately. So I thank you all. And please don't be shy. That's what this is for. However, in the interest of privacy, we are not reading out everybody's names, so nobody gets in trouble for being on this at work. We're talking about recruiting or sales or any of this stuff. So we will address them, but not name you. We're going out not only to our YouTube channel, but also to Facebook now, which is fun. And today is our month-end sales meeting, sales panel. I've got two lovely guests with me here that I'm very excited to ask a whole bunch of sales questions to. Jeff Gottlieb and Bill Vogler, thanks guys for being here.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I'd like to just maybe go around the virtual room. If you guys can introduce yourselves to everybody out there and say a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, Jeff, you want to go first?
Sure. Jeff Gottlieb. I am the Vice President at 11 Recruiting. We are headquartered here in Los Angeles, California. You can see the Hollywood Hills behind me.
So jealous of the view.
Been in the business over 18 years. Joined here in March. We focus primarily on technology, contract to hire, and direct hire. And about a year ago, we actually launched a now very successful finance and accounting, engineering, and manufacturing divisions, and continue to build on that success as well. So short story there for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Bill?
Hi, I'm Bill Vogler. I'm the Director of Business Development for our technology division at Winston Staffing. I am not in the Hollywood Hills, as you can see behind me. I have some lovely fish in my children's bedroom. So a little bit of a different view, but I'm based in New York City and live in the Upper West Side. Been at Winston for a little over a year now, working mostly. We have a very long history working with hospitals and a lot of healthcare. So basically technology is one of the, I would say third or fourth biggest divisions at Winston. So a lot of work when it comes to scaling up, working with clients, similar to Jeff when it comes to both direct hire, contract to hire, all the work. So really whatever our clients need and sort of just getting to know them a little bit and how we can best support them.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you both again for being here. So sales, how about it? This is a hot topic. I think that in my travels, just to introduce, I guess, what I do, right? For those who maybe don't know, is I'm a rec to rec, meaning I speak to owners and managers and directors of recruiting agencies and staffing firms and executive search firms, consulting firms, and all that. So sales is a big hot topic, especially in 2024. I think we all can agree that 2023 was a problematic year. Slow, weird, not as predicted. In fact, everything's been crazy, right? Since COVID, really. There's been so many ups and downs. But on my front, in servicing, and this will be interesting to talk about what we were talking about before, Jeff, actually. Interestingly, in servicing my clients, it's been almost 100% sales positions. And a lot of those have rested on differentiators. How are people differentiating themselves as salespeople? What are they doing to not just blend in with the pack? If everybody is seeing an upswing and then a downturn, who are the salespeople who've remained consistent or build well during downturns? How did they do it? So a whole bunch of challenges, whole bunch of questions. And this is like my conversations with people all day, every day. I thought this was a good spot to discuss these things. I know you guys and I have talked about this already off the podcast. So right off the cuff, I mean, in terms of sales, what are you guys seeing out there market-wise? Let's start with that. All the ups and downs we've had. How's 2024 been so far? How's summer? How do you guys feel about the markets that you're in?
Go for it, Bill.
Okay. So for us, I think, it's definitely been a bit of an upswing the last few months. I agree with you. 2023, I think there was some challenges. I think there's a little bit of hesitancy in the market right now, would be the word that I would use. I think there's so much uncertainty in the air between the election and interest rates and all sorts of, market events, I guess would be the best way to put it, that I think people are a little bit sort of in a bit of a holding pattern, I guess would be the best way to put it. So we've had a number of projects where, I think I'm on the 6th month of, oh, we're going to get that going any day now. And, it seems like budgets keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And now we're finally starting to say, oh, actually, we're starting next month. And it seems like the Neverland has finally arrived in a lot of ways. I know that's a weird way of describing it, but you hear these vague promises and it seems like, we're never going to get to Neverland. I know that's a strange analogy, but for me, I think, the promises are starting to actually turn into results, which I think, last year there was a lot of, we'll get to that. We're going to do this. We're going to do X, Y, Z. Oh, we're in a holding pattern because of interest rates, or, oh, we just had a freeze, or whatever it may be. I think that's starting to sort of, there's a little more certainty. And as I think we get closer to November, there's going to be more certainty and people are going to have a little more sense of where things are headed and how they can react and how they can staff up accordingly, basically, would be the best way I would describe it.
Thanks, Bill. It makes sense that you're using the Neverland analogies. You are reporting from your children's room. So
exactly. Yeah, it feels very appropriate.
It's just on brand.
And Hook is a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it, just to get that in there.
Fair. As long as we're not talking about the Neverland Ranch, I think we're okay.
No, that's a very different topic. Yeah, let's keep that away from your house. Anyway,
cool. Jeff, how are you feeling?
Well, I've been to the Neverland Ranch on the outside. Security skirts you away immediately.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Man.
Yep. So it's Santa Ynez, right outside like Santa Barbara, Los Olivos, area. Q1, I think we came out a little bit cautious. I think our client base was a little bit cautious coming out of Q1, and Q2 we just took off.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of the folks, projects opened up, like Bill said, there was spend there. I think they were the apprehension that was there, that where they wanted to spend that money sort of alleviated itself a little bit, and so we saw a really nice pickup in Q2. A lot of our business, one of the reasons I came here, we don't work in the transactional world. We are a relationship focused, relationship based organization. We will always do business that way. That's what really helps us get through the ups and the downs and the downturns and the tough times, is that we've got those relationships. They know that we can deliver, and they want to to continue to come back to us. We're continuing to see more growth. We're one of the few agencies right now that I think are really actively trying to hire multiple recruiters.
What you were saying to me before, that's crazy talk, man. Let's hear about that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we interview folks, for internal here, and it's crazy because why'd you get laid off? What happened there? And they'll tell us, hey, the that other agency, they couldn't have any order flow. It wasn't what they expected. There were bad orders, whatever the case may be. So they're actually really shocked during these interviews when we sort of discuss our model and discuss the success we're seeing and what we're looking to build out, that adding more recruiting to be able to support our incredible client base is like our number one priority right now. So it's a great problem to have.
It's a very high quality problem to have. And I mean, I say it's crazy talk, but I feel like even just us at Raymond George, we've been kind of feeling the same thing too, is that the influx of business from about Q2, like you're saying, Jeff, from Q2 on in, has been astonishingly great. So yeah, delivery then becomes the challenge, is turning around and actually delivering on everything you're promising in the timely fashion.
Yep.
Where we're at too. So I'm glad to hear that's happening as well. I mean, Bill, you're in New York. Jeff, you're in LA. Are you guys focused locally, largely in terms of business, or nationally, or?
I would say we're about 70% New York. So we have employees remote in 38 states. So we have quite a big national reach. We have a national team that really focuses across the country. But me primarily, I would say about 65-70% of my business is in New York. But I have clients in North Carolina. I have clients in Washington State. I have clients, a couple, Chicago. I could keep going on. But the point is that I would say, I would say about 70%. We have 4 offices that are all in the tri-state area. So we really traditionally have been almost exclusively New York, but ever since COVID and location, really, the barriers kind of disappeared in terms of a virtual world. So we've really been expanding outside of New York ever since COVID hit.
Cool. Jeffrey, how about you guys?
Yeah, we're a very similar ratio. We're about 70-75% localized to LA or Southern California. We have a great client base up in the Bay Area. We actually work in New York as well, Texas. So we've got some folks scattered, but most of our business is going to be here and it's going to be localized. Our president, Michael Chang, is president of the .NET User Society here, and so he runs a really great organization in that regard. And so we, again, relationships, right?
100%. And I fully agree on the relationships front, which I think is, obviously you guys just met today, but it's one of the things that I've gone along with both of you in talking about this stuff too, is I feel very much the same way. I think we've all talked, or all the 3 of us have talked about how the transactional staffing world is getting rocked by a number of factors that are big changes, and that's a whole way of looking at it. But before we dive into that fully, I'm curious, even just to get both of you guys' opinions on this. Do you think that there are, like, what are the differences? Do you think there are differences between selling or working in the New York market versus the LA market, locally, culturally? What do people respond to, outreach wise? How do you build? Is it different, do you think, or is it kind of the same elements?
I think it's a bit of both. I think people are different depending on where they're from. I think, people have local, tendencies, local idioms, whatever it may be. For example, when I'm working with a British company, I make the mistake of saying, oh, this recruit's going to be a home run. And they look at me like I have 7 heads. I've made that mistake, So I think it's, you have to be aware of the words you're using and how, one thing may, you guys, for example, I grew up saying you guys my whole life. I'm from Massachusetts. That's what it is. It's you folks, y'all, whatever it may be. There's always going to be some different term that you need to kind of mirror in a sense. And so, people are at the end of the day care about the same stuff. They care about the job, they care about their livelihood, they care about their family, whatever it may be, but at the same time, you have to be aware of regional differences, I guess would be the best way to put it. So yeah, there is a little bit of a difference, I would say, but I think at the end of the day, the client cares about the same things, and the end results are going to speak for themselves. So you just have to kind of tweak your approach a little bit without, rocking the boat and completely reinventing the wheel every time you're dealing with a new zip code.
Yeah, fair.
I think culturally, if we're talking specifically New York and LA, kind of similar, right? Kind of similar. I would say that the biggest difference or challenge can be location. Right. So we could, we've got clients in New York, right? Folks take a train in from New Jersey or even Connecticut or, another borough, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
LA, you could be living in Santa Monica and say there's a role in Pasadena, and you look at the map, and if you're not local to here, you go, oh, it's 22 miles, like that. Yeah, it's easy, right?
And yeah.
That's like 2 hours. So, you just have to be cognizant of commutes and make sure, you're getting folks that, it makes sense for them. Most of our clients are, remote or hybrid. We're seeing a big turn back to that hybrid model. And a lot of the candidates have actually been very receptive to wanting to be more hybrid and having that interaction a lot. And so location means a little bit more because of that.
I'll give you my own 2 cents, and maybe you guys will say I'm crazy. As the Canadian guy who sells into the US all the time, and has for many years actually in different things. When I was in the music business, when I was in tech sales, and in recruitment, I feel like for cold outreach, and this is me giving away all my secrets here, but I feel like in LA, in California in general, but in LA, I feel like people are very open to chatting about stuff, pop culture, current events. Something entertaining, funny, as a cold outreach. It gets people's attention more. Jeff, here's a great example. Even for a little while, your LinkedIn picture was a Rickroll.
yeah, it was
literally a Rickroll. You scroll over it and it'd be Rick Astley. You're never gonna get, which is and that for me feels very LA. Like right away, this is one of the reasons I reached out to you. It's hilarious. And that and I've had success speaking to people in LA that way, going in with something funny, cool, quirky, pop culture, forward, movie references, what have you. New Yorkers love that, but not right away. If I did that right away, they'd be like, "Who the frick is this guy? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Wasting my time." You know?
Yeah, you got to earn
Whereas
that.
New Yorkers love it when you ask about them.
Yes.
In my opinion, if you ask New Yorkers, man, you have a good profile. What's your secret to success? How do you? What are the restaurants like in your? What block do you live on? What part of town?
I was going to say
right back to you.
the opening question I always go with is, where in the city are you from?
Yeah.
Because you can deal with someone who's, oh, I used to live in Crown Heights, or oh, I used to live in the Upper East Side, or and it's just a completely different conversation with depending on what neighborhood it is, and even if it's just some oh, tell me about this place I've never even been. Like, what's it like? I have no idea. Then tell me. Everyone's out. You're very interested in the geography of New York. It's what you just talked about in terms of the hybrid roles too. That someone from Queens can work in the Bronx. It's not like it's not very challenging, but it's always an opening question because, like you said, you get to talk about yourself. You kind of just puts them at ease. What's your favorite restaurant? I love Keen's, whatever it may be, and kind of just like it's a connection that you're forming right off the bat. But if you go right into like, oh, tell me about your favorite TV shows, like books are you reading? They'll be like, who are you? Like, what is this? Like, I don't know you. And so, but the neighborhood questions, I've never really had anyone be like, I'm not going to tell you that. Like, why would I don't know you. Like, it's just kind of a, most people, like, sometimes they get a little uncomfortable. They're like, you want to know where I live? Or like, but if you ask neighborhood, it's broad. It's really all I need to know. I don't need to know like what your street address is and what your buzzer you are and whatnot. But I think that it is an opening question that New Yorkers appreciate because it does get them talking about themselves, and it almost sets the stage in a weird sort of way.
Yeah, and because you mentioned Massachusetts, Bill, I was going to say that Bostonians, in my experience, Boston is newer for me. I never really sold into Boston until I was in recruiting, so newer. It's still a few years, but and I feel like Bostonians particularly love Boston references, like memes.
Oh yes,
always send a meme from Goodwill Hunting, something Red Sox related.
Dunkin' anything. We love Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah. Wahlberg. You know what I mean? Like Mark, not Donnie.
Yeah.
Donnie gets no views. Mark gets views.
Mark gets views. Yeah. We love the Wahlbergs. We love Affleck, Matt Damon. Anything related to them, usually we'll get a good response. I should mention I grew up in Massachusetts, even though I've lived in New York for the last since 2011. So I guess 13 years at this point. So I'm kind of a mix of both. And diehard Red Sox fan living in Yankee territory, which can get a little uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah, surrounded by Disney.
Dangerous.
I have yet to get my ass kicked, but we've gotten close a few times. So
watch it there.
Yeah, exactly.
Come to a Dodger game. We could. I mean, they'll do that.
They'll kick your ass.
They'll kick my ass. Good. What an enticing.
You guys read the stuff. I mean, it's not bad. It's really not bad. Go blue. Go blue.
But if you want a good tip, Rick, you should ask Bostonians about their commute and the roads near where they live, because we have the worst roads and the worst commute in maybe all of the United States. And so if you ask about like, oh, are there any, I hear the commute can be tough in Boston. Tell me about it. Oh, let me tell you about the T is the nightmare. Before we get into that, the public transportation in Boston is just probably part of the reason that I live here now is because I just couldn't deal with the T anymore. So Boston is a wonderful place, especially this time of year. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we love talking about it. So anything you can get in to talk about, like, and also it's funny hearing people butcher the town names, because Worcester, Lemonshire, like I could keep going watching, all the videos I've seen of people try to pronounce the Massachusetts local town names. And it's very funny. And it's not there's no way that you can get them all without having grown up there. I still struggle with it. And I lived there, my whole life. So it's
like sensationally regional takes on very British sounding names.
Exactly. Yeah. Falmouth, Plymouth. I mean, some of them are a little more obvious than others, but Worcester is the obvious one. Gloucester, all the stirs is really what gets you.
Worcester, like the sauce.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so this is all. I mean, these are all great things to think of, and I feel like that kind of stuff that we're talking about right now is sort of absent a little bit when I talk to salespeople in recruitment, particularly. Like I'll say these, I'm inviting people onto this event who are like-minded to me, so I've obviously stacked the deck here, but I'm just saying it feels like there are a lot of people who are just kind of like put a good sequence together, pitch a good job. Do you guys feel like that's getting less sustainable, like that the relationship piece, my perception is that's the only way to do it now? Everybody else is just feeling like it's too much noise with the AI tools out there. How do you guys feel about the millions of sequenced emails and content that you're seeing, or people using them?
Yeah, I think part of finding success, there's a little bit of luck in what we do, and there's a little bit of did you talk to the right person at the right time, right? I think the more people you're talking to, you're probably increasing your odds of being able to do that, right? Um, we talk about the relationships; those relationships have to start somewhere, right? I
Yeah.
think you know attacking potential business in a unethical or a just a not the right mindset it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Like you have to add value. You have to be able to show delivery on the back end, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
going to do it, or even if that involves like, hey, let me just show you a couple of candidates that we think may be a good fit. Can you give me the three things that are not on the job description so I have something to go on so we at least don't miss, right? And or at least increase our odds of not missing because we all do, right? And with great feedback, we tweak our search and we find the right person. But I think you have to be able to still do those reach outs, still call those potential new
For sure.
clients because just sitting on what you currently have is never a good idea, right? Anything could happen at any given time, and so just like I said, we're hiring recruiters, but we still have to expand our
Mhm.
our business because we don't know, and there's a lot of folks that are out there looking for great places to work, and we want to at least we want to be the ones that are going to help them in their search and be able to land them their next great career move, and that's obviously very satisfying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Bill, I'm leading you in the conversation here. I'd love your general opinion on that, but I think you also have an interesting workaround to getting sequenced or telling when you're getting sequenced templated emails.
Yes, I think I know what you're referencing. So I'm a huge fan of video outreach. I think that what you just said about emails and sequencing. I look at my own inbox, right? Like I get 5 emails an hour
Yeah.
that I look at and I'm like, I don't know what this is. And you're sure, great. Like it's you see some buzzwords, you know exactly what you're reading very quickly, and you just it's Lavender talks about the mental spam filter. Lavender being a technology that's basically email creation and email narrative. I'm doing a poor job of describing their product, but basically Lavender, they talk about the mental spam block where you're reading emails and immediately this is a sales email. You read the subject, you don't even get to the email, and this is a sales email. So for me, I like sending videos because they show that they're personal, they're for you. I have a little whiteboard that I wish I had here. I can show you. It's normally here. I just go, hey, hey Jeff, and it shows it's like written with my shitty handwriting that says like, this is for you. This isn't some Times New Roman thing that's very obviously AI generated that I send to everyone. I like using careers pages as a background so I can reference a job description and I can say, hey, we're doing a big React push right now, for example, or Kotlin or a Objective-C, whatever it may be, some technology that we're currently, filling some similar roles for. We can reach out and say, hey, this is, I noticed, boom, 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 the 3 things that stand out to me technology-wise on this job description. We're working similar roles in New York. Do you think this makes sense to connect? 30 seconds to a minute. Nothing too long. People hate getting cold calls. They can spend 30 minutes or 30 seconds of their day watching a video quickly they know it's for them, that's not being blasted out to 1,000 email inboxes with the same message over and over again. So it's a great way. I also like I get notifications when they watch them. So I'll get a little notification that says, Jeff watched 30% of your video. Jeff watched 100% of your video. 100% usually will merit some kind of a response. If you watched the whole video, you stayed through my spiel for 45 seconds, you probably are going to at least respond with a, hey, I'm not interested, or whatever it may be. But the 10 seconds, I know they're not interested. They just clicked it by mistake. So that's helpful too, because it helps me kind of, focus my efforts on the right people, focus on the people that actually seem to be at least mildly intrigued by my messaging and watched my video and are, it kind of got a hook in a little bit, and they saw this face and they know who I am. And I'm not just some jackass blowing up their email inbox like everyone else. And so that's made a huge difference. I think in-person is coming back, which especially in New York has made a huge difference. I started I literally had my first day at a recruiting agency February 28th of 2020. So I started at the absolute worst possible time in this industry. So it's funny now, in a prior life, I did a bunch of event stuff. I held events, did a bunch of event stuff, and I'm kind of relying on that background and that foundation because I didn't have that experience because I started right as COVID was starting. So it's funny the shift that's happened really, I would say, over the last 6 months to a year. I think people are really finally coming out of the woodwork. People are hybrid now, especially in New York. If you lived in Connecticut or New Jersey, you weren't coming into the city at 5 o'clock for a happy hour. And now they're in the city anyway. So they may as well come to this event. And so that's shifted. I think that's really people are starting to populate these events in a way that's starting to be back to what it was like before COVID. Not that I would know, but I'm just kidding. But basically, the in-person's really, I think, made a big shift in the last 6 months. I think that's a great way to cut through the noise, cut through the sequencing, and then your emails will land to someone who knows who you are, and you've built that connection, and it's a human-to-human thing versus a company trying to sell you something.
I couldn't agree more on that human-to-human, where we do a lot of client visits now. In fact, one of our senior folks actually flew to New York to go meet with our clients there, right? So spending the week in New York with our clients, great, awesome. They love it. And it does make a huge difference.
It's funny. One of my old companies, we had a salesperson who worked in New York her entire career. COVID hit. She said, "I don't want to be here anymore." Moved to Florida, and now what she does is every quarter she comes up for a week. And so they have this whole thing planned out where once a quarter she gets all of her ducks in a row. She goes boom, boom. I mean, she tries to have 4 or 5 meetings a day. And she just spends a week in a hotel in New York and then flies home to Florida and runs her business from there for the rest of the quarter. And it's a great way. She loves it because she's able to meet with her clients. She's able to do the face-to-face. Most fire drills she can handle from Florida. If there's something that she really needs to be in person for, she can fly up, but that's very rare. So it's kind of a good compromise because she's not missing out entirely on that face-to-face interaction, but she's still able to not live in New York, which I think, is kind of a difficult balance, especially with everything being hybrid and in person, the way it's starting to drift these days.
That sounds very familiar because that is exactly what I do. And I still get to have free healthcare and whatever the hell, hockey and whatever happens in Canada. But I'm in New York to meet with clients. I was just there for a week in June, and I will continue to do so. Probably Boston as well. Hopefully LA too, Jeff. I haven't, we haven't done as much business in LA because I feel like and here's something else we can throw out there too in terms of topics is verticals that have gotten hit real hard. A lot of the business that we did in the West Coast was creative marketing, digital, entertainment, staffing firms. They got hit real hard. Not just during COVID, but part of the reason I started doing podcast events, which were audio initially, was at about the 1 to 2 month mark of ChatGPT being out. All of the people we had who were on delivery, West Coast, that were dealing with Disney and Amazon, whatever else, all of their copywriters got let go and will not be replaced. And all the recruiters who were working on those got let go and will not be replaced. 1 month of ChatGPT being available, and that's all. And so there was so much doom and gloom. West Coast creative. Are you seeing some of that, Jeff? How is that feeling these days? Because I'm not doing as much out there since then, frankly.
Yeah, I think a lot of the strike was also a very big thing that happened here, and that I don't think that the industry has ever come completely back from that.
Right.
I think a lot of the studios or organizations realize well, maybe we could hire 8 people back instead of 10 people, and we could still maximize what the output that we're getting, plus leveraging technology like ChatGPT, right? So yeah, we're seeing that a little bit in the creative space. We don't do a ton there, not that we wouldn't, but most of our clients are just not in that space. But obviously you pay attention, you get resumes, you see folks that are have been out for a year, and it's I'm born and raised in LA, right? So I've got a lot of friends that are in the industry, and it's really sad, to be quite honest with you, that they're not continuing their career or the path that they were on because of certain events, right? And COVID and technology and ChatGPT and whatever, right? And so in that regard, it's pretty tough. But I think there are other things to do. Like, for example, if you're if you're working maybe a scriptwriter or something like that, you could take that experience, leverage existing technology, and find a whole new vertical to be able to work in. Like, one of the bands right now is a prompt engineer, right? So you could take your knowledge and your background and now move more into a different vertical, which is a little bit more technology focused, and leverage that and find a whole new career there. That's, you know, a pretty in demand role right now. So I think that is interesting in that it sort of created another role out of nowhere because of it.
For sure. And speaking of, creating different roles and getting creative and what roles are like, what your expectations are in a given role, taking it back to sales, I feel like there's more and more moving goalposts and blurred lines around what constitutes a sales job. As in, like, how much BD, what kind of BD, what is a good account manager? There's a lot of flack against account managers. I feel like when I speak to people, they mean account managers. When they say this person's an account manager, they say they're a salesperson, but they're not making any money. That's what I think they mean most of the time. They're like, they're not really sales. They're more of an account manager, meaning they don't make us any money and they don't do any selling. And I feel like, as someone who is very, I believe passionately that the account management piece is really the relationship piece. It's where you get loyalty, where you can really expand into an account, become a vital partner with an organization. I feel like I'm personally somewhat offended when I feel like they just refer to the account manager as somebody who just is a crappy salesman. But I feel like it's the case. How are you guys feeling about this in your own organizations or elsewhere? Like, BD versus account management, a lot of people are splitting them. How's that looking on your radar?
I think splitting them is tough. I've had some conversations about that, but I just think that if you're the BD point person and you're building that relationship and you're the person they've been dealing with, and suddenly you're like, okay, bye, this is, you're going to deal with Steve now. Like, it almost like everything you've worked for is you're starting at square one again in a certain way. And I think that what you just said about account management is 100% true. It's not just, hand holding and send me recs and I'll fill them. It's, talk about initiatives, talk about strategy, talking about where the company's headed, how can we fit into the picture, blah, blah, blah. There's so much nuance to it. That's not just, let's go to a baseball game and talk about what's up. I think that's the way a lot of people think about what account management is. And for me, I think that if you're, doing your job correctly, to a certain extent, you should be trying to get to an account manager. If you're successful in your hunting, then in theory, they should become accounts that you are managing. And so I think, it's kind of you don't want to forget too much about this side while focusing too much on this side, but, you got to kind of balance, a little bit of both, make sure your profile, what's the term I'm looking for? Your pipeline is completely full. You're not neglecting efforts when it comes to finding new clients, but you also have to make sure you're not going to like turn around for 1 second and a client you've worked with for 20 years is bolted because there's some shiny new agency for 2% less that can promises the moon or whatever it may be. So in my role, I find that I'm doing about, when I started, it was about 70-30 hunting. Now it's about 50-50. I'm hoping to get it to 70-30 the other way. And I think that, over the next year or so, as I've been there a year, that's been the shift this year. I think the next coming year, it'll be the same, kind of shift the other direction. And that'll be an indication that I'm doing my job correctly, is kind of the way that I view it in a weird way. But I do think it's, companies that are trying to separate them, I think you're going to have so many issues with the handoff. I think you're going to have so many issues when it comes to, who gets credit for commissions. I brought this business in, but I was the one who filled the job. Are we going to split it? How does that work? And it just creates all these, complications that are, if you're, a BD point person, you don't have that problem in a lot of ways.
Yep, for sure. For sure. Jeff, how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Bill. I think splitting those roles just really complicates stuff, right? Yeah. Especially to the point where, listen, you if you're a business development professional, you go out, you kick up dust, go grab new business, you build this relationship. You're the one that's out there earning the trust of that client or potential client, and then, hey, thank you, cool. Now I'm just going to go ahead and hand you off to this person who you've at this point you've never met. There is no relationship, there is no trust, and see you later. So they're giving you all of that, and then you're just, yeah, I don't want this, I'll give it to this person over here. And so I think that's really tough. I think there's absolute value in account management and getting wide and deep and making sure that you're surrounding that client and servicing that client in the best possible way. I think when you get to the point where you're not just an account manager, you're a true partner where they're actually leaning on you for advice on potential hiring, right? They're sitting down with you and doing, quarterly business reviews and getting just a good gauge. I think doing that not only is so beneficial to the client, it's incredibly beneficial to the agency, the staffing agency, because if I've got a client and one of my folks goes out and meets with them and say, listen, we're going to need 16 developers on a project starting in Q4. It's going to run through Q2 of the following year. I need to make sure that I have those resources allocated to those folks, and we have to be proactively pipelining candidates for that. Now, if my account manager is not doing their job and they're not getting that information ahead of time, and that just gets sprung on us, we may not have the resources to be able to fulfill what they need, right? And so if that happens, what are they going to do? They're going to pick up the phone, they're going to call another agency and say, hey, the flow of candidates coming in from 11 recruiting hasn't been as strong as we need. Can you help subsidize some of those candidates? And before you know it, you just lose that client completely, right? And so that doesn't happen, by the way. We are always ahead of it. We always
This is purely hypothetical.
get it done, right? I just want to be clear about that.
We're getting back to Neverland again.
Right. Right. I think that is incredibly imperative, but never forget the pipeline, never forget to go and get new business. We love to do what I call working the churn, right? Where, listen, if we're fulfilling Java developers at one client and we know there's other business out there where we can put those Java developers, we're obviously going to do that because we've got great candidates already ready to go. They're already vetted. They've probably already been out on a project for us, or rolled off, or whatever the case may be. Let's help those folks find their next role. So let's just call a client that is doing something very similar, and we actually get a fair amount of referrals, which is probably to me the ultimate compliment from a client or even a candidate when they're giving you somebody that they've worked with and they're referring somebody over. I mean, referral business is incredible. I think I referred somebody to you, Rick, in fact, this past week, right, on LinkedIn.
It was very appreciated.
Yeah, because I trust you and I trust that candidate. Like, let me make that connection, right? So.
No, absolutely, and I do love that, and I totally agree. You guys both brought up something interesting here too, which I think is the being treated like a partner, like being really a partner, a subject matter expert. It's the buzzword. It's become just a buzzword that a lot of agencies use, and I hear, obviously, the nature of my job being people reaching out to me when they are unhappy. Obviously, that's a big part of it, and I do hear a lot of people say, when I ask them, what do you want in your next position or what was lacking? I really want to feel like I'm in an organization that rewards me, or like that the system pushes me and allows us to really partner with clients, not being more transactional. And I think it's this amorphous thing, because obviously you need to get business, you need to bill when you're doing sales. So you can't just have people befriending everybody and going to ball games with them, like you're saying, Bill, and just talking about like, what's up? Yeah. So like, obviously that's not sustainable. But at the same time, you can't always just be diving for new business, but then also saying what we really want to do is partner with you, but then not having example FaceTime client visits, like you're saying, and really get to know people. It's this hard balance. But like, to you guys, what do you think the day-to-day, or what do you think it is, that you need to do to be an actual partner? Like, how much time, or where do you guys find you spend that time well to partner with your clients appropriately without it being, a waste of everyone's time?
I actually got into a very passionate, let's say, debate about 2 or 3 months ago at a Pavilion happy hour. Pavilion is an organization that I'm a part of. It's mostly SaaS sales. It's primarily enterprise, but it's all it's sales at the end of the day. It's all salespeople, revenue generation people, all getting together, talking about tips, networking. I'm doing a university course right now. I could keep going, but the point is that I was having a conversation with this revenue leader. And he was like, tell me what you do, talking about that. And he told me that I was selling a commodity. And I looked at him and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not selling a commodity. And he goes, well, there's so many recruitment agencies out there. At the end of the day, that's really what you're doing. And so I think for me, our general goal is to get that mindset out of there. We're not selling a commodity. We're not selling Coca-Cola. We're selling, connections. We're selling candidates. We're not selling candidates. We're connecting people with jobs in a way. I know it's so hard to avoid saying horrible things.
We sell people. Okay?
Exactly.
We
I can't say
We're
that.
human traffickers.
I know that's not what we do. But it's that mindset of they're all the same. One agency is the same as the other. They're a commodity to me. Is really what I think is really common in the market these days. I think people view them like one is the same as the other is the other. And so overcoming that barrier and creating a sense of I'm not Coca-Cola. I'm a person sitting across the table from you that's working with you, that's trying to help you accomplish your goals is really the big mind shift that we have to create and sort of build in our clients. We have to get them to think of us as partners versus the commodity that a lot of them just view recruitment agencies at. And I think that barrier is something that people don't really understand exists. And I think that understanding, seeing the forest for the trees of how can I not only differentiate myself from everyone else, how can I prove that this industry is about unique connections and unique people versus just treating everything the same and everyone's, whatever agency I choose, it's going to be the one that I use that day and that's it. And I think that mental hurdle is so tough. And I think that's the real big first impression we have to make to overcome that. And then once we plant that seed and go from there, we can start to do business. And I know that it's, a weird way of thinking about it, but if you think that we're a commodity, then you're not going to care. And, it's just going to be, I'll deal with whoever. And so it's frankly stunned me that he said that. And this is where I'm going with this, is that I've never really thought about it. And it really kind of sparked a debate in me to this day about like, what am I selling a commodity? And I'm not. And I know that. And I just have to kind of convince other people that that's the case.
Yeah, I agree. Jeff, I have a very specific opinion about that. Jeff, what do you think before I launch into a spiel?
So it's interesting, right? One of my, I don't want to call it a full pet peeve, but I've heard word tracks. Mini peeve is good, right? Yeah. One of the word tracks I've heard throughout my career is, somebody's calling, they're doing cold calling, business development, right? And like, well, why should I use you? And the answer they give is, because we get better talent faster than anybody else, right? Everybody wants to promise that, but at the end of the day, there's a better recruiter at another agency than than we have that's crushing it and finding great talent really fast, right? I think that is, to me, that's a hilarious sell, so to speak, right? Because everybody, that's just the easy out. Oh, really? Can you? Right? By the way, the 3 candidates you just sent over, we already had. We got them from the other agency 2 weeks ago. So no, right? I just keep going back to the relationships. The value is in the relationship. The value is in helping our client base grow their business as best as we possibly can in an economical way, right? Can we get you, are we going to be the lowest priced agency? Absolutely not. We are not, right? Are you going to get the most value? Are you going to get attention from us? Are we going to do the follow-ups? Are we going to do things the right way? To me, that's a huge thing, right? Again, that's one of the reasons I came here, is because we do things the right way. We don't take shortcuts. We have a 33-step approach to our recruiting. 33 steps, not joking. And we do not take shortcuts in that to make sure that we are vetting out the best possible candidates in the quickest way that we possibly can. But if we have to take an extra day to make sure we're getting you some better folks, we will do that, right? I think that that's just the way that to do the business and the way that the business should be done. And then it's the follow-ups, right? So quality control for us is a big, huge thing, right? We don't stop after the placement is made or even after the offer is accepted before a candidate starts. We are checking in a lot to make sure everybody's happy, both on candidate and client side, and getting ahead of potentially any issues. Or a lot of times there could be a miscommunication that, hey, client says this, candidate says this, and you're just in the middle and like, you guys didn't communicate well, but let me help you out a little bit, right? And so there's a lot of value in post-placement communication that I think that's where a lot of agencies actually really drop the ball. It's like, oh, I made the placement, your deal now, or the guarantee period's over, I'll never talk to you again. So that's important. That's really important on both sides, right?
It's
Yep.
funny. I'm laughing about that guarantee period comment because that's funny because I one of my old companies, we had very strict quality control until day 91, and then it was whatever. So it's funny how you mentioned that, and I 100% agree. I think that, like you said about quality control, the job doesn't end the second that the person gets hired. That's insane, and I think that a lot of agencies just kind of dust their hands of it. It's funny too because a lot of candidates I think are surprised and they're a little skeptical because you call them and they're like, I'm done with you. I already have the job. Why are you calling me? It's very clear that there is something wrong. And I think it kind of like the way that the wheels turn a little bit. So it's funny how you have to like, it's almost like when you like Zoom message someone, like we need to talk. And it's like, no, it's good though. Like you have to like kind of make sure that you make it clear that this is not like you didn't get the job or something, or something changed or whatever it may be. And I'm now coming back to tell you some bad news. So that, you want to make sure you're not setting off any alarm bells.
Of course. So we actually do a really good job communicating that to our candidates, to let them know, like, hey, it's day 2. How was everything? Great. I'm going to call you on Friday just to get, let you. And then we're always setting up that next call so they know, when it's going to happen and why, and just checking in. They love to, they love to hear from us as well, right? And then let's be honest, those candidates eventually could become hiring managers, right?
100%. That's exactly what I was going to say, right? These are your hiring managers of tomorrow. They're your clients of tomorrow. They're referrals. They're everything. They're everything.
Always. Or a client becomes a candidate after a layoff or whatever the case may happen. And so, again, I just go back, like, talk to people, just be human, right? That's one of the big things that we, I don't know if this is even a subject today, Rick, but, is AI going to impact us as well on the recruiting side, right? And my answer is always no, because great, could I match keywords on a resume? That's awesome. Doesn't really tell the whole story, right? Don't hire off of a resume. But that human touch and that human element and actually getting to know somebody, knowing they're a good cultural fit or the company is a good fit for what they're looking for in their next role, because it's not always the case either, right? I just don't see how we could, as humans, ever be replaced. I mean, it's possible, right? I mean, who knows? But until a Terminator shows up here, I don't know.
We're going to go all Skynet on this thing now.
Right.
But I always do on these podcasts, and so I'm glad you brought it up, Jeff. And look, I mean, I not to go into a whole long thing, but to me, I feel like all of these things we've talked about today are really connected. I think that I don't know about how you guys feel about this, but possibly because there's a low barrier to entry, and most of the people that end up in agency staffing, we don't grow up thinking I'm going to be a recruiter when I grow up. You know what I mean? So it's not like a university degree. There aren't these like social touchstones to make you feel like an expert. So I think a lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome deep down, and they don't think that their time, their judgment, their that they're a subject matter expert, that they're valuable. But I'm coming at this I was trained by people from a value-added reseller that was based in LA called MacMall back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
When Frank Calusi, he used to come down and visit us in Montreal, and he would tell us, I was playing basketball with Arsenio yesterday, and tell us about how they sold more Apple than Mac, more Mac than Apple, because Steve Jobs was out of his company at this point. That's how old I am. Not only is still alive, but it was before he came back and started with the iPod. But all this to say, they taught us, and I feel like this really applies to recruitment, that when they say you are a value-added reseller, anybody can buy Mac products from anywhere. The value is you. You're the value. They're getting another member of their team, not free of charge. That's why there's a markup. That's why there's a fee. It's not just the product. And in this case, not just the service of providing candidates. You have another valuable member of your team working freelance for you to give you whatever. Use that member. Do you want benchmarking information? Do you want, you can get a lot of value out of what a recruiter sees, does, whatever out there. Get them to set the scene a certain way. There's a lot of value that you bring to the table. And I mean, if we're just going to sell a job to a candidate and be like, do you want this job? No? Okay. Do you want this job? No? You're going to get replaced by AI. If we're going as account managers to clients and saying, do you want this candidate? No. Do you want this candidate? We're going to get replaced by AI. So I feel like deep down, we have to value ourselves and all of the knowledge and whatever that we bring to the table and the work that we're doing, and pitch that to the candidate and to the client and be like, this is how you can use my service. You're getting me as a team member, as a partner to work on this, kind of free of charge to you, right? Like, in the work. I think that's, if we position it like that from the beginning, you're never going to be a commodity because you're the value. You know what I mean?
And that is a very good point, right? Unless you're doing retained search, you're getting that added value and added team member totally free. So if we don't deliver what we're promising that we're going to deliver, it doesn't cost you anything.
And you still can walk away with all of the valuable benchmarking information that you've had. I have worked with people where the job description starts to be one thing, but then I'm like, honestly, guys, if you're looking to do this, you should be looking for someone who does this.
Yeah.
For real. Because I talk to all your competitors. I know what's out there. I'm not going to give away the farm, but I can say, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You should probably try this. Trust me, because I'm working with you. It's an incredible competitive advantage to have somebody like that in your corner, because what do I do for a living? I poach people out of your competitors. Hello, like, you could use me as a freaking ninja assassin if you want, and I'll give you information of what I'm seeing out there. And then people are like, yeah, I don't know. I think we want to pay like 5% less on the fee this time. You should be talking how you can use me as your ninja assassin. You're talking about 5% on the fee. Assassins don't get 5% less. Come on, man. You know what I mean?
They take their own 5%.
What's that?
I said they take their own 5%.
They take their extra 5%. But I mean, I just think that there's a lot of fun we can have. And honestly, I think existentially or like emotionally, I think a lot of us feel this imposter syndrome. Like, we're not worth anything. If the job isn't good or if the candidate isn't right, we get down on ourselves because we don't have that university degree to fall down on to make our parents proud or whatever. You know, some of us come from other fields like the music industry that they more or less failed out of. And, you know, had a great time doing it, but didn't make enough money at some point. But so I feel like deep down, if we can get over that and also train our new people to think that way, I think there's your kind of inbred solution to the commodity thing. That's my little diatribe about that. Sorry, guys.
No, totally agree. Right. You know, the funny thing about what we do is, I almost think us like postal carriers. Like, the mail's not always like, you never deliver all the mail. Like, our job is never done. There's really no true. We have many stepping points and successes, right? But there's no finish line here. There is no like, I got from A to Z. I think a lot. You know, you're right. Nobody sets out and says, I'm going to be a recruiter. I don't think I've never met anybody that said that in their earlier years. We all ended up here for various reasons, right? I think the interesting thing is, you also never stop learning, right? Like, I've hired somebody that had no experience and I've got 18 plus years, and that was a cool word track. Like, I've actually never heard anybody say that, right? And all of a sudden, this person with no experience is feeding a new word track into our system. Sounded good, right? And so I think that part of the business is actually also really cool. There's just, you never stop learning. I think this is something that you could just never perfect the craft, right? We could get really good, but there's always that opportunity to learn, always that opportunity to improve. I think that's so cool to me. I always just look at this business as, you know, if you want to go on the, you know, the merry-go-round and you want to take a job that's monotonous and, you know, the same thing every day after day after day, that's cool for a lot of people. We are like, you know, a roller coaster on steroids. You know, you could be down in the dumps because something went bad at 10 a.m. in the morning, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it all changed because that, you know, that client called you back, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And to me, that's so fun. Obviously, we plan as best we can, but our days are so reactive a lot of the time that I love that about what we do. Just no 2 days are the same ever, and that's really fun to me.
Yes, no, I 100% agree. And I think, you know, it's in technology too. I work with a lot of consultants who they love just temporary gigs. They do 6 months of this, 6 months of that. They're constantly working on new things. They're expanding their knowledge. You know, I worked for a music company. Now I'm going to go work for a tax agent, you know, advisory firm, whatever it may be. Like, they don't really they just kind of enjoy the mixing it up every few months, and they're very happy. And I'm like, oh, do you want this permanent job? They're like, no, I don't want that. And it's funny that it's they've been doing this for 40 years, 35 years, and every 6 months, every 3 months, whatever it may be, they just do something new. And I think that that's kind of what we're doing in a weird way. We're working with different clients. Obviously, it's not in 3 month, 6 month increments, whatever it may be, but we're almost like taking off our a music hat and putting on our insurance hat when we're talking with different clients and whatever it may be. And so we have to be able to, getting into, you don't want to call Massachusetts and say Worcester, not you would say Worcester, Worcester, you don't want to call, a director of engineering and start talking about like SQL. Like they'll look at you like you have 7 heads and they'll be like, no, SQL, like you have to have that barrier to entry. But once you have that, and once you don't sound like a jackass, like you kind of, the knowledge will sort of come as long as you're inquisitive, as long as you're curious, as long as you're reading the job descriptions and trying to understand what it is this role is doing. Then you just naturally will start to understand how organizations function, how projects get done, how tech companies work in a weird way. And I think that over time that just builds and builds and builds. And I'm definitely a stronger partner than I was a year ago, just because I now know more than I did a year ago. And I think that in a year from now, I'll be better. And that's just something that I think a lot of industries, you don't get better over time. You just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that's something that we don't take for granted, but don't appreciate as much necessarily, about how much we're learning and growing every time we're learning about a new client or working a new role or wherever it may be.
Totally. And I feel like also just on a personal level with that growth, you raise a good point there, both you guys. But with all that growth, I don't know about you, but I freaking love my clients. Like I feel so emotionally connected to the stuff because I am learning and growing, and we do get into this thing like a team. And so I feel like I'm part of an extension of so many teams, that it's like when something bad happens, I'm like, oh crap. And it's not related to my bottom line necessarily. I'm like, oh man, so-and-so got poached for them. Oh shit. Okay, we're gonna pardon me in my language. Should I swear on this? It's my podcast. I can swear.
Yeah.
So, but you know what I mean? Like I get so emotionally invested in everyone's successes and failures. And I do candidate work occasionally too, obviously, but I get the emotional, it's so rewarding when you do it that way. That the money obviously helps, no question. We're doing it for the money, but we're also, I feel, it can be really rewarding if you're partnering with people. If you feel like a commodity yourself, I feel like it's very draining. And I talk to so many people who are getting so burnt out because it's been so crazy. But I almost want to almost foolishly suggest get more emotionally invested, because funnily enough, it gives you a lot of energy too if you have that. You know what I mean? Where are you guys feeling on that?
I definitely love some of my clients. Would be your original statement. I'm not going to tell you which ones, but I agree with you. I love feeling passionate about like the wins, the law. Feeling like you're living in the moment with them in a certain way. And like you said, I think that we're almost an extension of the brand. We're representing them when we're the first people that candidates are talking to. And if we don't know what we're talking about and we flub the interview, or we're 10 minutes late or whatever it may be, that's a bad look for the brand that we're representing. And so we have to be aware of that responsibility. We have to be representatives in a way that they would appreciate, and not necessarily swearing on pot. I'm just kidding. But I think that it's at the end of the day, the more you care, the more likely you are to have success. I definitely agree with that adage, and I think that all of these certain clients of mine, I'm not allowed to talk to the manager, and there's all these rules about the VMS and all that stuff, and like I don't feel a connection to those companies the same way I do when I'm calling the director of engineering and saying, what do you got going on? Let's talk about your projects, and have like a 20-minute conversation versus just a blank job order that I'm not even allowed to ask questions on. And, there's no connection there. And I think that, like we said, the commoditization, we're reopening on a bunch of wounds. But what I'm saying is I don't love all my clients that I don't feel I have the connection with, I guess would be the best way to put it. And the faster I can form that connection, the more involved I can feel in the day-to-day, the better off we're all going to be and the more success we're going to have.
100%.
I love when my folks get emotional or upset over a deal that went south, or, took a counteroffer, which doesn't happen. But, whatever the case may be, right? Like, because I know that they're emotionally invested in in the candidate, in the client, in
Yeah.
everything that's going on. And it's not about them. They're not, it's not a pity party because it didn't happen for them. They're truly, sad for either the client or the candidate, or sometimes both. So seeing people up, let's shake it off and get back in the game,
Sure.
but just showing no emotion to me is a little bit odd. Like you're, completely numb to the fact that this just happened. Like, how could that be? Which tells me that, yeah, you just weren't in it. And, talk about the money. I think that if you do what we do the right way and you build those relationships, on both candidate and client side, the money is going to be there. If you don't even have to worry about the money, it will be there. Just do what we do the right way, and it's there, right? I also think that this is one of, there's probably a fair amount, but in our profession, you could come in with absolutely no prior experience whatsoever and be making six figures within 2 years, where
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case in, like, what else can you do that? Like, I know that there are other things, I'm sure, but it's actually pretty cool to be able to do that, right?
100%.
Absolutely.
100%. Well, we are at 1 minute past 1. I thank you both for coming here. We could definitely just do this all day, and I wish we could. But I'd love to have both you guys back on. I thank you both for being here with me. And we've solved, I think, everything, right? All the world's problems. There's no more war or famine, and all sales problems are solved. So there you have it, everybody. But join us next week anyhow.
John Lennon's high-fiving everyone in heaven.
Yes.
We did it! Okay.
Yeah, we did it. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Great to meet you, Jeff. Bye, guys.
Good to meet you, Bill. Bye-bye.